This happened in the house where I lived most of my life, from childhood into adulthood. I lived there with my two older brothers, my mother, and my father, who sadly passed away 7 years ago from cancer. The house had been built by my dad's aunt, who had also helped some of the neighbors build theirs. She was very well liked in the neighborhood, not only for that but because she was a very kind person. Her weakness, though, was dogs. My mother used to tell me she once had 15 dogs living with her at the same time. They were all well cared for and dearly loved. Even so, she was a very lonely woman and never had a partner, not even until the end of her life. My mother always mentioned that when I was 3, my aunt had taken a special liking to me. There was a noticeable difference compared to the relationship she had with my siblings, with whom she never managed to have that kind of bond. I mention this because it might help explain some things I'll tell you later. The house sat very near 3 busy avenues with lots of traffic, and my aunt always rode an old road bike. She used it for every errand. One afternoon she went out, as usual, to buy food for her beloved dogs and never came back. She was hit by a truck on one of those big avenues. They took her to the hospital immediately, but it was useless. She had died during the ambulance ride. Her wake, I remember, was held in what is now our dining room. That's where they decided to say their last goodbye to her. I don't know if that influenced anything I'm about to tell you, but from that moment, even though I was very young, I noticed some things begin to change. Or at least I attributed them to that event and that period. The first odd things I noticed had to do with my toys. Something or someone, who I was sure wasn't my brothers because no one entered the room during that time, kept moving them around. At first it didn't scare me. I always thought I was just careless. Then I began to hear a voice through the house, a voice I never recognized calling me by my name, but no matter how much I searched every corner I never found who was speaking. I even felt my hair stroked or small tugs at it that were unmistakable. After that, like everything was escalating, I started seeing shadows dart across doors and hallways, but I never clearly saw anything. I was terrified to tell my mother and completely dismissed telling my father because of how he was. I thought if I told them they'd think I was crazy. Even at 6 or 7 years old I had that idea, but talking about it became unnecessary because my family, from one day to the next, began to notice strange noises too. The kitchen cutlery would clatter at night like someone was frantically searching for something without caring about being heard. The shower would turn on by itself at full pressure so everyone would hear it, and my mother or one of my brothers would go to turn it off, sometimes complaining, but they would go. Even the storage cupboard was violently shaken so we could hear it from our rooms. It was heavy furniture, it wasn't easy to move, which made it clear that this was not normal. When I turned 8, one of the worst days of my childhood happened. One of the little dogs my aunt had left us died of old age. She was very old, but you never feel ready when a pet dies. That afternoon my mother and I were alone in the house deciding what to do with the dog. Our best option was to bury her at the back of the yard. My mother refused to do it alone. She said she couldn't, that seeing her lifeless was too much and she couldn't say goodbye. I understood that as I grew older, but I offered to do it myself. Although it hurt me deeply, it seemed the only option because my father certainly wouldn't do it. With his temper and drinking, he would get very angry and might even think we had done something to the dog. I don't know why he would think that, but I was sure he would. So I wrapped our little dog in a blanket, laid her on the grass, and began to dig her grave. After a while I finished, and, just as I was covering the last soil, my mother came over to hug me and be with me while we said goodbye. Then we both heard a dog cry, a very loud cry but as if it were far away. We looked everywhere but saw nothing until I leaned over the place where I had just buried her. The cries were coming from beneath the earth. I suppose my mother saw my terrified face. Both of us were certain she was dead. It wasn't the first time a dog had died in our house, so it wasn't an error on our part. My mother ran into the house, but I stayed still. I remember that sound under the ground without stopping. It felt like 3 or 4 minutes that lasted an eternity. When the cries finally stopped, I ran into the house too. Neither my mother nor I said anything about it. We pretended it had never happened. Night fell and we were all in our rooms, each in their own, except my mother, who stayed with me to say goodnight. When she left and I turned off the lights and closed the door, it was as if something had been waiting for that moment. Immediately I began to feel as if someone were trying to suffocate me with something. It felt like someone putting a plastic bag or something similar over my face. I couldn't move much, though I wasn't paralyzed. I struggled with whatever it was for what felt like a minute. Then suddenly it was gone and I was able to scream for my mother. She came running and I told her everything, crying and almost screaming. While she calmed me down, she checked me and said my neck was completely red, like someone had squeezed it very hard. From that point, at the age of 8, I developed very severe problems sleeping alone at night. To this day I take pills to be able to sleep, because that was not the only thing that happened to me at night. I'll tell you the rest later.